السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أرسله الله بالحق بشيرًا ونذيرًا وداعيًا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجًا منيرًا. وبعد، قال عز وجل في محكم تنزيله: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. I say, just to start off, that the starters are always better than the dinner or the main course itself. So inshallah we all enjoy it. I enjoy your company and you enjoy mine. But I only wish there was a stand here so I could stand a little higher and everyone me. Khairan. I don't know if there's sisters here, but my khitab is to everyone. So brothers and sisters in Islam, with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal and His mercy, I say, first of all, let me explain the topic that was given to me, so that way you'll get the gist of the talk. It was in regards to da'wah. How should da'wah be given? What are the methods of giving da'wah? And what is the most important thing a person should be careful of? So inshallah, these were the ideas put forward to me, and I try to answer them the best I can with the little knowledge that I have. I say that there is no shortcomings in the amount of numbers that we have that are calling to the religion Islam, that are calling to the oneness of Allah Azza wa Jal, that are calling to the worship of Allah, that are calling to the messenger, the prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his life. There is no shortcoming in the numbers that we have. MashaAllah, wherever we look, we see the du'at, we see the people, we see the ones who have degrees and the ones who don't have degrees. We see them calling to the name of Allah. But I want you to please note that my words do not concern only the du'at, the ones who preach towards Islam, but it concerns everyone. For I do not consider the fact that you need to have a degree, or you need to have a certificate, or you need to be a graduate from a university or college, nothing like that, to become a person who propagates, who calls to Islam. Could be anyone. For it is said, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً, and this is a general statement, that whatever you have of your knowledge, small it be, big it be, an ayah, small ayah, whatever it is, go and give it to the people. So everyone in this sense is a da'i. So whatever knowledge you have, you pass it on through your character, through your moral, through your speech, the way you interact, through your transactions. But I say, sadly, that our shortcomings have become apparent with our practices and our methodology as to how we should propagate and how we should call the people to the word of Allah. And this is where the initial problem has occurred. And firstly, we say we must become moderate and balanced in our methods and use the correct means to approach the masses of the world. Not as we see it befitting, or how Maulana sees it befitting, or how a committee sees it befitting. La, but we say how Allah and His Prophet see it befitting. That's how we approach the masses. And this is a true methodology and the correct understanding that we should take upon ourselves and say that we don't want to call the people in accordance to the way I see it correct, but I call them to Allah and His Prophet in the manner that the Prophet of Allah and the Book of Allah and Allah Azza wa Jal see it to be correct. And if we stick to these rules, we stick upon this path, then we would make sure and we'll be sure of our results, and we'll see something of good coming out of it. And Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. That Allah Azza wa Jal has created this nation, and He has made this nation a nation that's balanced, that's moderate. You don't go extreme where you overweigh the other side, nor are you lenient where you overweigh the extreme side. Nothing like that. So how do we know of the fact that what's moderate, what's balanced? We come back to the same thing. That you don't see what befits you to be correct or what you seem to see correct, but you turn to the Quran and you turn to the Sunnah, you turn to the history of the companions, and you see how they dealt with it, for their wisdom is much greater than ours. So Allah has created this nation to be moderate in its speech, in its actions, in its character, in its morals, in every method possible. But we must also bear in mind that the most direct method of giving da'wah is through the usage of your tongue. And this is the most common thing that the people do. That whenever you want to approach someone to rectify him, to correct him, you speak to him through your tongue. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant me and the brothers and the sisters that are here today the control over our tongue. For it is a muscle that lies between our jaws and behind these closed teeth, that if it were to be used without consideration and without thought, its destruction can sometimes be uncorrectable and unrecoverable, that we cannot come back from its nuqsan, its damage and its harm. And it comes to this stage that if the people are not careful of how they use their tongue, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ, then you'll see calamities, you'll see difficulties upon the earth and the oceans, بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِ النَّاسِ, because of what the people have done through their own hands. So the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whomsoever amongst you gives me the guarantee of that muscle that lies between your jaws and that which is between your thighs, then I give you guarantee of Jannah. Jannah, just like that, it's a hard task to make sure the fact that you control this muscle. So you have seen, and everyone I'm sure has come across some sort of situation where the person does not think before he says something. Everything can be taken back, but the words cannot be taken back, and everything is recorded. So calling to the word of Allah, calling to the word of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one must take immense caution, as he may just cause the damage and destruction to Islam and its image through his own tongue, and he doesn't even realize it. And this is what we have done, and this is the results of our actions, that we need to be extremely careful and judge the situation and see how is it I can approach this person, and that in itself is from wisdom. And then you speak, whether it's best for you to speak or best for you to stay quiet. There's also a decision, and of a wise decision for you to make. But little, I say, and many do not consider it. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, "Ud'u ila sabil rabbik bil hikmati wal maw'idha al hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan." Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Ud'u." Generally, people, when we speak to them and they say, ud'u, they say to you to call. Hey, yeah, let's use a nicer, a generous word. I say invite. If someone said to you, call that person to my house, and you heard him, how would you consider it? And if somebody else says to you, invite that person to my house, you'd consider, wow, that person is inviting me into his domain, into his house. So we say invite, ud'u, invite the people to the way of your Lord, bil hikmah, with wisdom. And wisdom is that you put everything in its place and you judge how it be done and when it be done, and when's the correct time and when's the best time to stay away from it. That you judge these situations. And then وَالْمَوْعِظَةُ الْحَسَنَةُ. And then again we hear many translations to this word, but I say with good instruction. وَالْمَوْعِظَةُ الْحَسَنَةُ, that you call the people with good instruction. That if you have a manual book and you go through many manual books and you say, this is the most easiest one that I could go through, give me that. So you create your manual book in regards to giving your da'wah as simple and plain and as easy as a person can take it. And you do not overburden him. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. And then when you debate with them, then debate with them in a manner that is good and perfect and good. So from the methods of a person that he may choose to propagate, to give da'wah to the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal, and that is through many ways, and I'll mention some of them. And the first one is at-tadarruj, that when you see someone that he makes a mistake, or he wants to come to Islam, or he wants to rectify himself, then you use the means of going to him stage by stage. You don't hit him with a hammer. You don't hit him with something that's strong. You judge his situation. You see how this person is. What's his situation? How is he going through? What's his circumstances? And then you give it to him. For example, a person does not pray. And you say to him, brother, you know what? You should come to salah and pray. And you see the fact that the person's lazy. You want to give him da'wah to come and pray to the masjid. So the best way for you to would be to go to his house, knock on his door and tell him, bro, let's go to the masjid. He would say, you know what, mashallah, he's come to my house and I respect that. I might as well go to the masjid with him. And then he says, I don't know how to pray. Then you take it to another stage. Then you say to him, you know what, brother, you only pray the fard of your salah. Leave everything for just now. And then even the fard of the salah, I would say to him, the fact that even minimize that, just so you could complete your fard towards Allah, your wajib, your compulsory act towards Allah. Read a small surah. Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. Once is sufficient. Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. So forth. So you take your da'wah to the other person tadrijan. You don't take it and throw it over him at once. The other way is the fact that the person approaches the other person through question and imposing a question. For example, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ. Were they created from nothing? أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. So Allah Azza wa Jal is questioning these people, that were they created from nothing? To make them what? To make them think, to bring them back to that which is the truth. Or the other method is by giving them examples. And Allah Azza wa Jal says, أَلَمْ تَرَى أَنَّ اللَّهَ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بِالْحَقِّ إِنْ يَشَأْ يُذْهِبْكُمْ وَيَأْتِ بِخَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. Allah Azza wa Jal says, don't you see how Allah Azza wa Jal created the heavens and the earth? And this is by picturing to them the creation of the khalq, giving them examples. So we could do that. It's very simple. And I encourage the brothers that they do that. But you study and you seek knowledge and you understand and you make sure you balance it out. And then you carry on with it. Also what you may do is to encourage the other person. And this is also da'wah. And Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَكَفَّرْنَا عَنْهُمْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ وَلَأَدْخَلْنَاهُمْ جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ. And Allah Azza wa Jal calls upon the people of the book and He says to him, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ. And if the people of the book, they're listening, they know it, they know they're being called. وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ. And if the people of the book, آمَنُوا, if they were to believe, وَاتَّقَوْا, and they were to seek piety, لَكَفَّرْنَا عَنْهُمْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ. We would have forgiven all of their sins. وَلَأَدْخَلْنَاهُمْ جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ. And we would have entered them into the abodes of Jannah. So this is targheeb, this is encouragement. This is a method of making the other person think. So we say, with all these methods that we have, the biggest problem that I see is the tongue of the human beings. That we need to learn how and when to use it. And may Allah Azza wa Jal firstly teach me, for I am the first one to seek lesson from this. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, كل المسلم على المسلم حرام. Every Muslim upon every Muslim is sacred. دمه وماله وعرضه. His blood, his wealth, and his honor and dignity. So here we realize, what's the link of the tongue with all this? I say everything starts with the tongue. If there's his blood that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, then blood only takes place when the tongue starts to move. The mal, the wealth of the person, is only affected when the tongue of the person moves. And the honor of the person is destroyed or destructed or tampered with when the tongue of the person moves. So we be careful of how we use it. For when we use it, we may reach to the extent where we spill his blood, or we affect and destroy his wealth, or we tamper with his dignity and honor, and that would not be permissible. Also the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimun min lisanihi wa yadihi. Who is a Muslim? A Muslim is a person who is, when he comes across another Muslim, and he is safeguard of his tongue and of his hands. And if he's not a person that safeguards his tongue and his hands from another Muslim, then there's doubt, and the opposite of the hadith is clear. And also the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Inna ar-rajul la yatakallam bi kalimah ma yulqi laha balan yahwi biha fi jahannam. And there is a man, when he speaks, and he does not consider what comes out of his mouth, and he considers it to be nothing, but that one word may lead him into Jahannam. And then, وَإِنَّ الرَّجُلْ لَا يَتَكَلَّمْ بِكَلِمَةٍ مَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا. And there's a man who speaks a word and he doesn't bother with it. Because of that one word, Allah Azza wa Jal will enter him and raise him his status and enter him into Jannah. So the moral of the whole speech or talk, or let's say advice, is the fact that we give da'wah. And it is upon everyone that they give da'wah in accordance to the knowledge that they have and making sure that it's authentic. Don't be bringing any gibberish that you listen to into your head, or any gibberish that you read and you take out to other people. Make sure it's authentic. And then you take it forth with the methods that we mentioned. And the methods that you use, be sure the fact that you take control of your tongue within it. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وجزاكم الله خيرا.